Free agency has been really interesting thus far, and while it feels like it's pretty much died down and really the only major thing left to happen is Kawhi Leonard officially signing his contract extension, which hasn't happened yet, but there's already reports that he's going to be doing that. Or I guess it's not a contract extension, it's a re-signing. There is two major players right now who have yet to be signed in a way that is kind of surprising, or at least in the case of one of them, I would say it's surprising, and that is Dennis Schroeder as well as Lauri Markkanen. So I wanted to talk about those two real quick, but before I do that, let me just say subscribe to the channel if you have not already. I'm trying to hit 100K on this channel by the end of the year. I think that's a really lofty goal, but I figured I'd set it anyway. So if you watch these videos pretty regularly, especially if you're over on my main channel, then subscribe. But I also drop a like on this video as well. But anyways, I wanted to talk about these two because one, I'm inherently interested in Lauri Markkanen. I have two Lauri Markkanen jerseys because there was a time in my life where I legitimately thought he was going to be a franchise player for the Chicago Bulls. And here we are now. Dennis Schroeder is an interesting one as well because really the reason these guys are both interesting to me is because they actively bet on themselves and it hasn't worked. It just, I understand why they did it, but their decision to turn down contract extensions, the both of them, has bit them in the ass. Because I know for a fact that Dennis was offered over $20 million a year for multiple years from the Miami Heat, and now it's definitely looking like he won't be getting that. I'm going to real quick Google what, I know the Bulls gave Lauri an extension as well that was like $18 million a year, but let me quickly check. Lauri Markkanen contract extension. Larry Markkanen, Jesus Christ. The Bulls and Lauri Markkanen, $4 million apart on the contract extension. What did they actually offer him? Okay, apparently I can't find the specifics of the contract, but it says, it says that they were off by $4 million a year annually. Markkanen was seeking a deal starting in the $17 to $18 million range. So I guess they offered him $14 million a year. So I guess that's not that big of a leap from what he's actually going to get more than likely, but a long-term like $18 million a year contract is not coming from any team at this point. Dennis Schroeder turned down over $20 million a year from the Lakers, and that clearly has not worked out. It doesn't seem like there is that much interest in these two. There was a lot of guard stuff that happened this year while Dennis Schroeder just kind of sat on the sidelines. The thing is, I think Dennis Schroeder more so than Lauri Markkanen is getting shafted here because even though Dennis definitely thought his price was a little bit higher than it probably was, at the same time, Dennis Schroeder is a really good player. I realize he had some struggles in the playoffs that was like, this guy kind of sucks. But in general, Dennis Schroeder is a pretty damn good basketball player, and there's reason to believe that he can be an above-average starter for a long time. Or I don't know how old he is. I think he's like 26, but like for another 4 years at the very least. Is Dennis Schroeder worth $20 million a year? I'd say more like 18, but he's not even going to get that more than likely. So betting on himself in that regard did not end up working out. And I think it's more so from the circumstances of the league. A lot of teams kind of have their guard situation figured out. The one team that has pretty much publicly expressed interest in Dennis Schroeder has been the Boston Celtics, and that's because they don't really have a point guard situation right now. But like if you look over the rest of the teams in the league, for the most part, there are of course a few exceptions, but the Hawks have Trey, the Nets have... Don't know if you can hear my dog barking, but if you do, that's what's happening in the background. The Hawks have Trey, Nets have Kyrie, Hornets have LaMelo, Bulls have Lonzo, Cavs have Sexton and Garland, Mavericks actually could probably use Dennis Schroeder a little bit. The Nuggets have Jamal Murray, the Pistons have Cade and Killian, the Warriors have Steph, the Rockets... I guess KPJ might be their point guard next year, but even then they don't really need Dennis because he's a little bit older. Pacers have Brogdon. Clippers... could see that one a little bit, but Reggie Jackson's really good, and they just signed him back, and he's a lot cheaper. The Lakers now have Russell Westbrook. The Grizzlies have Ja Morant. The Heat have Kyle Lowry. The Bucks have Drew Holiday. The Timberwolves have D'Angelo Russell. The Pelicans now have Devontae Graham. The Knicks now have Kemba Walker. The OKC Thunder don't have a point guard, but they're not really in a position to be signing veteran players. The Magic, same thing. The Sixers, I guess that could make some sense, but that's it. The Suns have Chris Paul. The Blazers have Damian Lillard. The Kings have De'Aaron Fox. The Spurs, I guess, make some sense. The Raptors could make some sense because Goran Dragic doesn't want to be there, as he just said today. The Jazz have Mike Conley. The Wizards, again, that could make some sense. So the point is, there's not really like a starting point guard spot available like around the league. There's not multiple of them. And where there are, there's not a whole lot of contract. There's not a whole lot of salary cap room. Like the Boston Celtics and their interest in Dennis Schroeder could end up having to be a sign and trade for Marcus Smart because that's a thing that's been reported. I would fucking never even consider doing that. But that's kind of what it would have to be because they don't even really have the cap space. So like you have to have the cap space to accommodate the amount of money that Dennis wants, and you have to have a starting point guard spot, or you have to be a team that's willing to pay a lot of money for a backup point guard. So really, it just makes no fucking sense. There's really no place for Dennis, even though, is Dennis worth $18 million a year? Sure. Is he a starting point guard? Sure. Are there available positions for that type of player? Not really. Lauri Markkanen on the flip side is a much more different story because Lauri Markkanen kind of sucks. And I don't like saying that because, as I said, I have 2 Lauri Markkanen jerseys. Lauri Markkanen was one of my favorite players in the league for about 2-3 seasons. But he's not very good. Unfortunately, the only thing that he does at more than just a passable level is three-point shooting. And this season was the only one where he actually shot well from 3. He shot decent from 3 previous seasons to this one, but this one he shot 40% on 6 attempts, which is good. But the problem with Markkanen is he can't post up. He can't create off of the dribble, really. He can do it every once in a while, but it's not his thing. Not a good finisher, which is ironic because his nickname is the Finisher. He has no post game. I already said the post game thing. He doesn't really have a mid-range face-up game or anything like that. He really can only have offense created for him, and he's really only a good catch-and-shoot three-point shooter. That is pretty much all he brings to the table. And for a player who's as much of a defensive liability as Markkanen is, on top of the fact that you have a 7-footer on the floor who can't finish at the rim, that's not a good NBA player. It's just not. It's a player that can get spot minutes and be like 20-minute per game stretch big, but that's not like, oh yeah, this guy deserves $18 million a year. Like that just is not realistic for the type of player he is in the current moment. I respect players betting on themselves and things like that, but it's not looking like it's going to work out for Markkanen because he's not actually as good as he thinks he is, which again, I don't like saying these things about Markkanen because he's one of my favorite players for a long time, but nevertheless, it is indeed true. So the team that right now has the 2 teams that have expressed real interest in him are the Dallas Mavericks and the New Orleans Pelicans. The Pelicans I do understand from like a stretch 5 perspective. Now that said, disaster defensively to have him and Zion as your bigs, but like situationally, I think you can get away with that. Especially in moments where you need 3-point shooting, that would be big, but don't sign him intending him to be your 5. I don't think they do that being they have Valanciunas, but yeah, the floor spacing that he provides, I get that. He's young, and it's not like it's over for him to improve in other areas of his game, so I get that. And if they could do a sign and trade to the Bulls where the Bulls get Josh Hart, I would be so happy because I really like Josh Hart, and I think he's exactly what the Bulls need. So that would be pretty fucking awesome. But I don't think you should pay Lauri more than like $8 million a year. I don't. And that is kind of that's kind of what he has to go with. Like there's been reports from Lauri's management suggesting that he's gotten multiple offers, but that's like guys who like, it's like Mr. Bitches. Lauri Markkanen's agent is making him Mr. Bitches right now. And he's not. He's not. I hope you understand that reference. But Lauri Markkanen, it's like, oh yeah, I have so many contract offers. I'm just trying to pick which one I'm going to do. It's like, oh, I can't decide which college I'm going to because they're all giving me so many scholarships. It's like, no, they're not. No, they're not. Your options are limited, and you're trying to make it seem like you have more, so you have more negotiation power. And hey, do it because it's the right tactic. But he doesn't have multiple offers. The Bulls are really trying to get whatever they can out of him asset-wise in a sign and trade. I imagine if it was the Pelicans move, it'd probably be more like a second-round pick or two rather than Josh Hart. That being said, the Pelicans and Josh Hart really just not having much contract talk is weird because Josh Hart's a really solid NBA player. But yeah, so Markkanen, don't expect him to get much money. In fact, I think if I was him, if you're going to continue to do the betting on yourself thing and hoping you just have a breakout season, then just take a one-year deal. But honestly, if I was him, like what I would do, not from what he's been doing previous, I would just take the long-term contract and be okay being a multi-millionaire just for not as much. Because Markkanen is just not that great of an NBA player, but he's going to get more money than he's probably worth based on the fact that he is young and still has potential, whatever that means, even though he hasn't improved at really anything since being drafted. But yeah, that is Markkanen. That is Dennis Schroeder. Dennis on the Celtics, I actually like that fit. I just wouldn't do it if you have to trade Marcus Smart. I think that's a pretty big fucking given. But yeah, sometimes betting on yourself is good and it often works out, but sometimes either the situation doesn't allow for that bet to work out or you kind of suck. It's one of those two. That's unfortunate. I'm never rooting for anybody to not get the money that they deserve, or really just like anytime someone makes a bunch of money, I'm not like, oh, fuck that guy, unless they're like a billionaire, in which case, okay, yeah, kind of fuck that guy. But like, I'm not mad at a player making more money than they should, because ultimately, who am I to say? And good for them. I don't really care. But it's not working out for these guys right now, and it's kind of sad, and I wanted to talk about it. So yeah, that is it. Goodbye.